Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Parsa. Parsa, you might, you could kind of call us to order. We're just here to get Brian Detman, for the record, Youth Development Oregon Director. We're here to just go over our agenda for our quarterly meeting. Parsa, do you want to?
Excellent. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I, Parsa Chanrami, Chair of the Youth Development Council, call this meeting to order to review the agenda for our meeting on September 11th.
So, Melissa, do you want to do a roll or a quick, or or maybe we just say who's here and then keep it going?
Sure. Roll call is basically Parsa Chanrami and Tabidi Lewis and Molly Rogers, and everyone is present. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa.
And I can
Yeah.
share the draft agenda that we have. There's been one change to the draft since I sent it to you all, which is let me know that you can see this. Things on Zoom have changed a little bit since our last Zoom meeting. Can you see that draft agenda okay?
I can see it. Yeah.
Okay. One thing has changed since I sent it to you all, which is adding the committee updates here at 1:30. And yeah.
Sweet. Well, I'm happy to just kind of walk you through it. I think Melissa's pointed, she's for those of you, maybe Melissa, you can make it a little bigger, but I think she also sent this out to all probably via email, or maybe it's attached to the meeting invitation. Our meeting is scheduled for Thursday, September 11th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We'll be at the Warm Springs Health and Wellness Center um, um, in Warm Springs on the tribe, on the reservation of the Warm Springs tribe. So we're excited. Andy Leonard, one of our other council members, has been working with us and working with Melissa more specifically around setting up this. We had, if you, those of you may recall, we had some idea that we might do the June meeting at Warm Springs, but the sort of some of the logistics got in the way and we weren't able to do that meeting in Warm Springs, but we've got this coming meeting there, so we're really excited about that. This is a meeting that's a little bit longer. We have a couple of 4-hour meetings each year with the hope that we can spend in a little bit more time just in connection and relationship with each other and add some more good interactive elements to the meeting, have a chance when we're at not in at one of the at a public building to kind of tour around and see what one of in this case what the tribal government is has for its citizens. I think at the end we'll probably walk around the Warm Springs Community School if I'm not mistaken. So that should be really informative. Our agenda for these meetings is I'll just walk through it pretty, no, not necessarily really quickly, but just we've got about 20 or so minutes left in our time together. Plan on calling the meeting to order at 10. Um, I will note real quickly, Melissa and some other staff will arrive the afternoon before to make sure we got the room set up for those who are participating virtually. We strongly encourage folks to show up in person and know that, as the beginning of the school year and like lots of things are happening, we'll definitely have some folks who are online. So you see the Zoom link at the top. But anyway, we'll start at 10.
Brian, excuse me. This
Go.
is this is Melissa. I see Parsa
Go.
has raised her hand.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, I just had a question around, do we have a sense of how many folks will be there in person so far for the meeting?
Yeah, Melissa, do you want to
We do. Let me do a
share what
quick
you
count of
see?
the RSVPs so far. Um, there will be so far. I know we have, did we say five staff will be there in person? Tanisha will be supporting us online, which will be awesome. Thank you, Tanisha. Tanisha's been able to join us, or she has prevailed over her computer issues this morning. Um, and we've got in person Molly, Christina, Tabidi, Andy, of course, will be there. Nate, um, Andrew, and Paris. So far, I've heard seven people online. I'm still waiting for several other RSVPs. So that is
Seven online or seven in person?
seven in person. I'm sorry,
Yes.
seven in person. And I've heard from two people who have said they'd be online. So that's about half the folks have RSVP'd so far. Half of the council members have RSVP'd so far. So that number may go up. We'll see.
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa.
Lovely. So yeah, we'll start at 10, do our call to order and roll call, but welcome. Any quick updates from me? I'll just throw into the space for those who were, and I'm guessing some of you, all of you who know, paying attention to the economic forecast that came out yesterday. I Prasa, Molly, Tabidi, feel free to jump in or add either questions or comments. I saw that there was about 800, nearly 900 million in less in revenue that was shared or presented by the state's economists. So that I think is not good news. And so the impacts to state agencies and state agency budgets, I'm not even going to say exactly what it will mean or how that shortfall or how less revenue is going to impact things, but it feels like there are going to be some potential additional budget reductions for agencies that may have already experienced them, or we're going to have to look at um our budget that we got, which was a continuing service level, like we at least up to this point have felt really pretty strong about our budget. I have a meeting at 11, or 10:30 or 11 at some point this morning with the DAS, Department of Administrative Services, and their chief financial office staff about our budget, and I think I'll learn more about any implications or what the at least perspective is from DAS CFO, the Department of Administration Chief Financial Office, or officer. So more to come, but I I feel like there are going to be some hard decisions. We're in the throes of our request for application process, and we will continue with those processes. I think at this point, like we're conducting our business as usual, trying to get money obligated to those organizations who've, scored the best in our application process. But yeah, specifics on impacts not yet known. Happy to share more at the meeting as I know it. But hey, that's kind of fresh and top of mind for me, given that the forecast was yesterday morning. I don't know if anybody has comments or questions. Don't want to like spend all the rest of our time on that, but it's fresh and probably one of the most important things for us to just be thinking about big picture. Any thoughts um, for those who were watching that information come through?
Yeah, just to add to that, Brian, the other takeaways that I recall from the update are, the state economy's growth is slowing down, the likelihood of a recession. They sort of slightly lowered the chances of that, just based on the reshoots from this revenue forecast. And then of the sort of 808, $58 million sort of impact to the state. The budget hole size is closer to 370 million in the red, just because um, before the end of this fiscal cycle, the legislature set aside probably 470 or so million, but that is essentially wiped out because of the impact of the federal HR 1 bill. So that was the other thing I'm taking away of like, okay, we're trying to get a better sense of what is the downstream and upstream impact of this bill. And there's still a lot of moving pieces, and it's the first forecast of 8 in total. So I think the other thing that I've been trying to talk about is this is a first look at this biennial cycle, right? And there's more information with future forecasts, and they'll have to do some updated analysis from both DAS and the Legislative Revenue Office as well. Um, but again, probably biggest takeaway is the negative impacts the federal bill has to our bottom line too. So that's probably what I would add there. But I'd be curious if there are any other updates that you'll hear from your meeting today that you might be able to share when we meet all together. That'll help us get a big, a more clear picture as much as possible. Clear as mud. So,
Thanks, Parsa. Yeah, and I'll say quickly, and I don't know, Molly or Tabitha, if you have other questions or thoughts, but I'll say quickly, the corporate activities tax, the CAT tax, which funds the student success plan related programs, as I understand it, that revenue has been, as it was described to me, as flat. So the what I was told is that given that how that revenue comes in, I think we can anticipate that for us, re-engagement is supported by corporate, student success legislation and the corporate activities tax, specifically on the revenue side, that I think that that should remain stable. Um, it may be again on the more the general fund side that that the implications of this budget deficit to what you've just identified, Parsa, in terms of the delta between the 800 whatever what as forecasts come in, if revenue continues to be down and what the legislature has set aside, whatever that difference is, I think that those impacts will happen on the general fund side,
yeah.
across the state. So
Mhm.
good, a little bit of, if you will, kind of some, I don't know, little yeah, piece of good news around the student success related efforts.
Right. And there's also, we might also mention that there's $100 million reserve for the Student Success Act account as well.
Mhm.
So the legislature used about 100 million of it this last legislative session. So knowing that there are reserves in case of an even more
Mhm.
extreme budget scenario, at least for, the Student Success Act and the pillars and whatnot, we could mention that that is something that we have that's different in previous contexts, like
Mhm.
during the Great Recession.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, in
Awesome.
case it's helpful for folks
Yeah.
to know that there's a bit of a cushion.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to keep us moving because now we're kind of getting toward the 10 minutes or so left. More to come. But Parsa, thanks for the additional context. Expect that information perhaps as part of the director's update and some good conversation and questions there. We'll move to a state advisory group / juvenile justice committee update. I know we've got an additional maybe juvenile crime prevention plan to look at that the juvenile justice committee has been looking at. I don't think we'll have the detention guidelines, but Molly, I see your hand up, so feel free to jump in.
Yeah, no, actually, that's what I was just going to talk about is we need to have a vote
Yep.
for our juvenile justice crime prevention plan. Detention
Yep.
guidelines we'll do an update on,
Sweet.
but we do need to have a vote during our report.
Yep. Yep. Thanks, Molly. We know that we'll make sure there's time for that. Looks like we've got 30 minutes dedicated to that. Anya and Molly, y'all can tell us if that feels like the right amount of time or if we need to make an adjustment, but definitely anticipating the vote on that one plan. Anya?
I think it should be enough, and I'll have a quick summary of the plan to share with the council so they have an idea what they're voting on.
Awesome. Appreciate you both. We'll move from there to an update on the request for applications. We are through by the time that we have our meeting will be our the re-engagement opportunity grant, the re-engagement grant for like specific services, the job and work readiness grant, and community investments. They'll all will have will have gotten intents to award out for all three of those RFAs. I think the community investment grant that's the third and last RFA that we put out. So we may be still in a appeal process time period for community investments, but we will be know who the intents to award are and can share high level. Paul's going to be out of town, but Jared's going to be there in person, and so we'll kind of share what where we landed. We know that we have less in federal dollars that we're able to award, particularly on the community investment side. You know, the quick summary. I feel like a few years ago where you said you need to basically get like a either a B plus or an A minus on your on your application. Like we're definitely now you need to have an A to uh, to 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 have been in the award pool, have some regional winners who so that we can ensure that dollars are going to different geographic regions around the state. So we'll share, the update and summary about kind of where we've landed with those things. We've got 20 minutes dedicated to that. Might be Melissa, we might want 30 to answer any questions. And so far, I'll say we've definitely had some people appeal and have questions about their scores. We haven't had like a big public records request or a no, nobody's announced a lawsuit, right? So in that respect, that still things could still change. But I feel like while we've had to say no to more people than we're able to say yes to, um, and certainly there's disappointment that we hear about and when somebody's either not awarded or didn't get had an evaluator who was maybe evaluated things a little bit more differently and perhaps more harshly than perhaps another. I'm happy to share. I think from a process standpoint, I feel like we're definitely doing some really good work and we that's a long way of saying too, I don't know if we'll get folks who come in for public comment, but we'll kind of see where that goes. But we've got time in the agenda, obviously, for updates around that. Any questions? All right, we got like 4 minutes left. I know you all are busy. So we'll then move to a strategic plan update. Wanna less about it, a little bit of like, here's what's happening, but want to spend some time just it's not a huge amount of time. So we'll give you kind of where things stand and then answer questions and then move into hey, let's plan for the retreat. Let's want to do some conversations with some smaller groups around what do folks want to get out of the retreat? What are ways we can make it worth your time and keep you enthusiastic and engaged? So we're going to spend a good chunk of time um, once like kind of over lunch trying to get your input, your ideas, your questions around the planning retreat, both and some of that maybe relate to strategic plan, but it also may just be like, what are the activities? we want to engage. We also have our strategy committee that's going to spend some more time, but this is the interactive portion of the meeting. Molly, I see your hand.
Okay, so I'm just going to be a wet blanket, and I apologize for being a wet blanket.
Yeah.
It feels like we just got out of a retreat and we're planning to have another retreat, and we're spending the majority of our time doing planning for a retreat. Um, I, I don't know what I want to say, but I'm not feeling like I'm feeling like I would rather hear about things that are actually happening and doing
Mm-hmm.
than just planning another opportunity to get together and plan. Again, wet blanket, it's been a long week. I get that. So take my words with that is if I can, I may check out at that moment in time because I don't need to plan to plan.
Okay. Well, we want to have that retreat time, which is November. A couple of days in November. Melissa can help me with the dates.
No,
We want to
yes.
make that as productive as possible, and um, so
I
however
get it, but we're
the
planning to
ideas.
plan for a retreat where we're going to do planning. So again, I'm a
Yeah,
wet
but
blanket.
maybe
I
we
get it.
can, yeah, maybe there's ways that it's not like planning focused. It's engagement or maybe we invite a grantee or somebody to give us information. So we don't necessarily we have a plan, so we don't necessarily need to spend the time doing more planning. Hopefully we can do something that feels more action oriented. Molly, that's my 2 cents. Tabidi, I saw your hand.
Um, so first I want to apologize to Molly and Anya. I know I missed our last couple of meetings. I've had a lot of family issues that have had me traveling quite a bit. So I just want to publicly make that apology. And I just wanted to Molly, you, I hear exactly what you're saying. And I guess two things I would ask, what would you suggest that we use that time doing? And then I'm thinking, um, I was reading this real cool book called I know many people know it, The Five Dysfunctions of Team. But how do we use that time actually sharing best actions to put in place aspects that are, going forward regarding, okay, here's the plan and here's what we're going to be doing. And maybe even trying to solve some issues in that real time moment that maybe I know groups get stalled on often of going around and around and around and maybe kind of saying, okay, what seems to be something that we just keep playing around with and let's kind of find consensus and values, et cetera, maybe collaboratively and maybe get a sense of how vulnerable the group is able to be with one another. I don't think that's really an issue, but I'm just, sort of a member that is not an employee, if you will, of YDC, but I don't get a sense of that. But I may learn some things. But I guess the main thing is how do we get actions? And I'm thinking about specifically this budget forecast. The key to protecting the resources is going to be, which I think we've been doing, but also in every aspect of the plan, just from my administrative experience, to kind of quiet people has always been just showing how what we're doing is is having an impact and talking about how some of those things may be. I'm just throwing out a few things, but I think it's really about action and kind of being vulnerable and getting support from the larger group, from the subgroups as far as how to actualize components. And I'm sorry, I can be long-winded, but I will be quiet.
TBD, this is Molly. I like where you're going with that. And I also feel like we're at a place where we could invite people to come talk to us. If the Warm Springs tribe would like to talk to us about their JCP plan and their work, I think that it's a moment where we can really celebrate where we're at and give them time to really tell us what we need to know about where we're sitting at the moment.
That's my fantastic feedback. We wouldn't expect anything less. This is why we do this.
Hmm.
So, because we don't head in a direction that the people are like, what are you like, let's make the best use of the time that we're there. So we'll take this in. I'm seeing shaking heads. I'm seeing to be like, let's talk action. Let's solve issues. Let's not spin our wheels. We do have the ability to, with Andy and others there, to see some things in see things in action. And so, Melissa, maybe we take in like maybe that's trust me, I don't want to have to spin my wheels or my staff's wheels like planning things, planning for planning sake.
Hmm.
Like we do, like, okay, how do we make this interact? So this is good. This is we to know like to give it to us straight. We'll put it back and crank the wheel. I know we're getting now past the bottom of the hour, so I really want to respect your time. Parasa, you had a quick.
Yeah, just real briefly building off of what Tabiti and Molly shared, in collaboration with our partners at Warm Springs. I wonder if they are coming in and presenting during that portion. For newer council members, it might be helpful to talk about like how this work fits within the strategic plan and how it advances like a particular pillar or pillars of the strategic plan and just being very explicit about that. Um, because I do think that, being able to name that helps people see, oh, this is our work in practice.
Hmm.
Um, and that could also help inform how we do our retreat in the sort of winter. And then for things that don't get fully, addressed during this meeting, might be worth convening like a smaller subcommittee that can help inform more of the planning alongside staff for what that's worth, so that it doesn't take up the majority of the council's time either. Um, so I wanted to offer that.
Yeah, that's great. Good. The strategy committee does have that assignment process, so that's coming. So we don't need to. So we have that in mind. November is a retreat, so just late fall. Keep that in mind. The meeting will end, just to go back so that you all committee with some committee report outs. We will have heard juvenile justice, but our youth committee has had a meeting. Strategy committee, I think, meeting may be coming up before, probably after, maybe after our YDC meeting. Public comment. We'll round things up, and then we'll adjourn. Melissa, we can think about to what extent what happens after two. So we can do a little thinking about um how we use that time in the middle of the day, and time after the meeting for those that can stick around. If there's, in addition to maybe some speakers, if folks actually want to see something while we're at Warm Springs, that maybe could happen like actually right in the time frame of the meeting, and then maybe for those of you that got to drive, you can get back to where you need to get. So,
We do have the tour scheduled right now. That's 2:15 to 3. We could change it, but that's
yep,
currently scheduled.
yep, might we'll think about that.
Okay.
Thank you all. 6 minutes after the bottom, but
Thanks again.
so yeah, this is why we do this. Like, like we're not like 2 days before the meeting. Hey, ooh, what questions? So we appreciate your time. Do you want to close this out, Parsa?
Absolutely. Thank you again for joining the meeting today to review the agenda. Really appreciate folks being able to share their feedback. And I am happy to adjourn the meeting, and I'll see you all in September.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank
Thank
Thanks,
you.
you.
everybody.
Thank you, Brian, Melissa,
Yeah.
and
Thanks,
Tanisha.
Melissa. Yeah,
See ya.
thanks.